is vaccinia virus. It is attenuated live virus in you, and that's why you never need that vaccination again. Because the live vaccinations are forever. In an attenuated vaccination, you need boosters because that's a dead virus. But here we put live virus, right?
Same is for polio. Same is for polio.
Same is for polio. That is true. The drops of polio, when you have a virus which is like a live virus, it gives you lifetime immunity. And now they are saying that every 10 years or 20 years you should double check it because viruses are evolving very fast too. So this kind of like tells you that viruses come in the genome of the DNA, double-stranded, single-stranded, RNA, positive strand, negative strand, and so forth. So this picture tells you that, and they are divided into families and genres and orders and like that. But then viruses are the only species on the face of the earth which regulate all other species. We think that we are very clever, we make bridges, we fight in wars with everybody we want, but it's the viruses which regulate the world, not only humans. I mean, COVID-19 a good example hai. People have died like all over the world. 30 years ago, HIV came, run havoc, and thousands of people died. So what happens is that when viruses come in, they can regulate the population of every other species. So there are viruses जिनको हम कहते हैं bacteriophages and sometimes only phages. They infect bacteria. So there are viruses for dogs, viruses for flowers, viruses for horses, viruses for human beings, and so forth. Plus, there are viruses for bacteria. And bacteria was the...
Excuse me, sir. We must be knowing more than individual as well. Now there is a concept that many of the problems caused by the bacteria, in fact, they are caused by the viruses living inside them.
So that is true. So many bacteria, not all bacteria, many bacteria, when they cause a problem, a toxin, a certain kind of toxin that they produce, that happens because they are virally infected. But not all bacteria, right? Some bacteria are inherently cause disease, those are bacterial diseases, but some bacteria are infected by the viruses. But now we are also using it for treating people. Like bacteriophages are now used to treat people. So we will go there. So let's talk about the size. So here are 3 grains of sodium chloride, right? And if I want to line up my skin cells, 10 skin cells, I can line against one wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? But just to give you an idea about the size, and I'm sure that many of you already know that if I want to line up this bacteria, I can do about 100 of them line up like by one wall. But if I want to pick a virus, so I pick here TMV. It's like a rod-shaped, long tobacco mosaic, yeah, right? So tobacco mosaic, if I want to do, there will be about 1,000 of them will line up against the same wall. Where only 10 skin cells. So just to give you a view that your skin cell is so much large as compared to the virus. Of course, many of them we cannot see with the naked eyes. There are viruses you can see under the light microscope. Very few of them, right? But their size is very small and all the more difficult to fight them. Because something that we cannot see, we do not know where it is, and the fight is very difficult. So people talk about corona a lot, right? And one thing that I heard from many of my students and many of my colleagues also, कि वो कोरोना तो ऐसे जल्दी से आ गया, पता नहीं क्या हो गया. That is not true. Corona was here in 2002. Right? In 2002, it came as a severe acute respiratory syndrome, which was called SARS. Then it came again in 2014, which was called Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, which was called MERS. It is the same virus. It is the same family. The difference is that it didn't spread in the world. It remained contained. And these are viruses, very special properties. What kind of viruses keep contained? There are certain kind of viruses which you cannot contain. Right? So we'll talk about it in a minute. But what I want to tell you is that most of the viruses spread through our eating habits. In different parts of the world, people eat different things. Food and clothing is always by geography. Right? It's always by geography. Too cold, people wear like jackets and everything, right? And too hot, people wear like light colored clothes and things like that. So the acute respiratory syndrome, the SARS, that one came from this kind of cat. This is called civet cat. And this civet cat is eaten in China. Right? It's consumed. And SARS was there. Then Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome actually came from this, the tallest camel had. Single hump, tallest camel. And camel is consumed a lot in Middle East. Saudi Arabia, this virus came in Saudi Arabia. And it killed a lot of people, and that is from dromedary Arabian camel. But it didn't come to Pakistan. It didn't come anywhere else. So we should think about it, why these viruses didn't come out. And my God, when COVID-19 came, the world halted. Why? So there are only 2 or 3 things. As good virologists, as good biotechnologists, you should know that 2 kind of viruses, I mean there are more categories, but 2 kind of viruses do not spread in the world. One is which kill their host, like Ebola. Ebola is a horrible virus, but it kills its person. So first, its incubation period is very small, like 2 days. After 2 days, the person gets violently ill, and then the person is dead. That person has no time to travel. The world is very small. People in 12 hours are in different parts of the world, but in 2 days you were very sick. 2 days before that you were not feeling very good. After that you are dead, and your whole family is dead. That's how Ebola did. It came into a family and washed out the family in 3 days. Because everybody got it. It's so virulent, so vicious. So they didn't go anywhere. So Ebola contained. It remained contained in Africa. Right? And these 2, they were not that virulent. They were not that infectious. But when viruses jump species, which is called zoonotic virus, those are the cleverest viruses. So when a virus stays in a species, जैसे civet cats we have, then from civet cats it goes into the camel, then from camel it goes into the humans. It is picking some proteins and DNA from everywhere. So its blueprint is changing and then changing and then changing. Drastic change. So much change that it is so clever that it comes in me or you, and the incubation period is very long, 2 to 3 weeks. And you're having golgappas with your friends, and you're going to movies together while you're carrying that virus, right? And you're a carrier of that, and you're laughing, and everybody's getting that virus from you, and 15 days later, boom! Somebody's sick there, somebody's sick there, somebody's sick there. You might have traveled from America, brought it with you, give it to all Pakistanis here. From Pakistan, go to America, give it there. So long incubation time, and plus you don't feel bad. So it's a very clever virus. It just sits. There are viruses which has incubation time of 2 years. There are such viruses also. They just sit. Once they are inside you, they just sit there. And 2 years later, they cause the disease. Those are the most dangerous ones. So when COVID-19 came, it has all those, I shouldn't say beautiful, but I'm saying in a smart biotechnology way, right? So they are so beautifully smart, that they are so powerful that they are like, I'm going to be very quiet, I'm going to take my time for incubation while you go enjoy yourself so I can have more hosts. So like that, the world was on fire. But it is not true when people say, "Hey, COVID kaise aa gaya, kal aa gaya?" It didn't came yesterday. It was here. Then it was here again, and now it was here again. And the virus was working towards our world. Okay, so coronavirus structure is a pleomorphic. And pleomorphic means also tells you that it's a very smart virus because it changes. Yeah. 2 to 3 days था. Because people die. जिनको वो हुआ ना, जिनको इबोला हुआ, उन लोगों को ट्रैवल करने का टाइम नहीं मिला. हाँ बिल्कुल. और ये हुआ. So if you go back and study the history of Ebola, a lot of doctors died, a lot of nurses died, the whole families died, the whole people who bury them died. So it all happened, and then we learned कि dead bodies को अब touch नहीं करना है. So when anywhere somebody died, people never had closure for their dead ones. ये जो जब epidemic आता है ना, जब तो ये बेसिकली सिर्फ आपको डिसीज नहीं करता, ये इमोशनली भी बहुत डिस्टर्बिंग है. Because people never had closure, they never touched their dead ones, they were separated, and their dead ones were covered with bleach, and then picked with a crane and thrown into a mass grave, and then that mass grave was covered. अगर कोई भी और टाइम होता तो ये वॉर क्राइम कहलाता. But this was important to save rest of the villages. So this did happen, right? Great question. I will show you. I'm going there. I'm going to show you. We'll talk about Zika also a little bit. Ebola and Zika at the end. So its structure is polymorphic. That is also that this virus is very clever, because when you're polymorphic, you change your shape. And sometimes when people are investigating you under the microscope, you get nahi, ye corona hai. So corona is known as corona because it has beautiful crowns on it, right? But not always. So that's why in many countries it happens when people, you might have heard people say, oh, वहाँ corona है, हमारे यहाँ corona. अरे है भाई, वो प्लियोमॉर्फिक है, सिर्फ इसलिए कि तुमको क्रॉन्स नहीं नजर आ रहे तो अभी आ जाएगा, you know. So then उसकी क्लासिफिकेशन जो है उसके इर्द गिर्द you know halo like appearance है, and it has envelope of glycoproteins. Glycoproteins are sugar proteins, you know that, sugar laced proteins, right? And then we have it multiply, its multiplication, it enters the host genome, it is uncoated, and it is then transcribed and translated. That means it makes, it's an RNA virus, it makes its DNA, then it makes back its RNA, and then it makes its proteins, right? And these kind of viruses, which are like kind of have a reverse transcriptase in them, they are even more clever than a normal DNA virus. The other thing that, I mean, this is like more molecular biology, but one of the things that we all, they are very educated people sitting there. So DNA is your and my blueprint, right? DNA has a system which is called proofreading. तो पढ़ा आपने? पढ़ा ना? तो RNA का proofreading कहाँ है कि नहीं? कौन बताएगा? स्टूडेंट से पूछ रहे हैं, कौन बताएगा? चलिए, क्या करा? कौन-सा बोलो?
RNA does not have proofreading system.
Very good. What is your name? Miss Tuba. $1,000,000 answer. RNA doesn't have a proofreading system. है ही नहीं. So every time when RNA gets made, there are few mistakes made in it. हमारे भी, we too. But if a virus is made has an RNA as a genome, or every time it changes, उसमें थोड़ी सी गलती हो गई, तो whatever vaccine we made is useless now. So that's why every year the flu vaccine has to be administered, because the RNA viruses have no proofreading system. Yes, because RNA never has proofreading system. Okay, so what is the host defense? It is the appearance of antibodies in serum and nasal secretions they take. You all know that, right, about it. And what is its epidemiology? The same serotype may return. So viruses, not only COVID-19, I'm talking about COVID-19 right now, but not only COVID-19, any epidemic, जैसे हम याद रखते हैं ना जिन जगहों पे हम पहले जा चुके हैं, अगर बहुत साल भी नहीं गए, फिर वहाँ जाते हैं तो थोड़ी देखी देखी लगती है ये जगह, इन्हें याद आती है. Viruses have a memory of where they have been before. Generations में चलती है वो memory. That's such an amazing thing, you know. And if they go somewhere and people are like, क्या virus, you know, nobody is like very, so they can spread very easily. They remember those places, and they come back every 10 years. They revisit. Survival है ना? It is like a survival thing. So viruses have a very good memory. So if an epidemic happens in China, you see that another epidemics happen in China many times, like 10 years later, 20 years later. So they are like usually go, right? And we know its diagnosis, so I will not waste time on that. You all know about its control, wash your hands, keep distance, and so forth, right? We'll come to the YouTube video later. So they are the most powerful species, right? They regulate the Earth's population for all species, right? They are also very specific. They are host specific, right? So viruses have many different classifications. One classification of viruses is that they go by the host. So for example, if you have a dog or a cat, the virus that cause a disease in your dog or cat will not cause a disease in you. But then there are others which do that. For example, rabies, right? It can go in dogs, rabid dogs. It can go in horses, and it go in humans.
Isn't it same for the animals and plant viruses? Most of the viruses, they don't transmit the problem in animals, which are just causing problem in the plants.
So that is true. So it depends, right? So different classifications, that if there are viruses for flowers, there are viruses for leaves, there are viruses for vegetables and fruits and things like that, but they will not cause this, because the machinery needed is very different, right? But then there are those which have more than one species their favorite, right? They provide genetic material evolution, they regulate mass population, I said all those things. And now, according to the new research, viruses are now many species. They are, so I started this lecture by telling you that they are obligate cellular parasites, which means I told you, hey, if the host is not there, virus cannot be there. But according to new research now, they are actually finding viruses in places where there are we have not been there. So they have a different role also, which you and me do not understand yet, right? So we understand very little about viruses. So this is the cave of crystals, where they have been found. And they are also being found in the sputum of humans now, which cause disease, and we do not know why viruses are there also. So those things worry us a lot. And we can add more and more and more to these things. I give that to my students always, that you have this, and if you find something about viruses that is not written in the books, you add to your knowledge and you share with each other. So the word virus comes from venom, like venom of the snake, right? And it used to be called, over time, just the word virus is left, but its real name used to be contagious viral agent or contagious venom agent or a long name it used to be, and over the year it becomes like just virus. And people were afraid of it so much that this is a statement from a history of virology book where it says viruses can impregnate paper, and then when you touch that paper you get ill, which is so true, right? But then with that, a lot of misconceptions came. When I started doing cell culture, I did cell culture with small animals and large animals also, and also with cell lines. So when I started working with macaques are the type of monkey from where HIV came. So I was very afraid because they have SIV and I have to draw blood every day. And my trainer, who was training me for biosafety level 3 training, she was a very wonderful woman, right? And she was the first lesbian woman I ever met in America. And she told me, she said, Gul, you're afraid of the wrong thing. I said, why? I don't want to get SIV. She said, hey, if you get SIV or HIV, it will give you 10 years to live. You get hepatitis, you'll die in 3 months. So people are always worried about the wrong things. Because everybody said HIV. HIV, if I put it here, it will die in 10 minutes. Because it cannot be dry. But if I put hepatitis here, it is alive half a day. I come here, I work here, I do this, I have picked it. Right? So we are also afraid of like wrong things in very wrong ways. You know? So HIV, no doubt, you don't want to acquire HIV. But we are never almost worried about hepatitis, and it is so common in Pakistan. That's why. Right? So, so this kind of thing that it can impregnate the piece of paper and then you touch the paper and you get it. It is true about viruses. Does it make sense, right? Okay. And the modern meanings of virus came in 1800s when there was an agricultural catastrophe. So humans are also very strange. जब लोग मरते हैं ना, तो रॉयल्टी को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता था. कि आम लोग मर रहे हैं. लेकिन जब क्रॉप मरने लगी ना, तो उन्होंने कहा ओहो हम तो गरीब हो जाएंगे, खाएंगे कहाँ से. तो ये TMV है, जो टोबैको मोज़ेक वायरस है, उसकी वजह से ये सारी रिसर्च शुरू हुई. उससे पहले ब्लैक प्लेग आ चुका था, ब्लैक डेथ हो चुकी थी, बुबोनिक प्लेग हो चुका था. Nobody cares because nobility को तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, वो तो महलों में रह रहे हैं, आम आदमी मर रहे हैं, you know. But when the crop thing happened, then the revolution of we have to know what is this virus thing and we have to control it. That's when it happened, right? So it has a whole history behind it. Okay, how many vaccines do you think are now available for human use since 1796? और 1796 क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है और 1949 क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है वायरोलॉजी की दुनिया में? और तूबा नहीं बता सकती, वो बोल चुकी है. Who will tell? Take a stab. Take a rough guess. Why do you think this year is important? 1796. Huh? Huh? 1796 क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है? Penicillin? No, not penicillin. Good guess. Very good guess. Penicillin is very important. But I was not that clear. किसको एडवर्ड जेनर का नाम पता है? Good. So Edward Jenner is a farmer, right? He is not a scientist, not really. And he milked cows. और कोई machines नहीं होते थे, हाथ से. But cow pox also belong to the pox family. And if the teat of the cow has a pox in it and you have a cut, you have actually inoculated yourself. So he was a farmer, but he was an epidemiologist. Epidemiologist ने देखा कि ऐसा क्यों है कि ये सारी विलेज मर गई स्मॉल पॉक्स से और ये फार्मर फैमिली जिंदा है. एक फार्मर फैमिली जिंदा है, क्यों जिंदा है? फिर दूसरी किसी विलेज में देखा, एपिडेमियोलॉजिस्ट नोट दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. फिर किसी और जगह देखा, वहाँ भी सब मर गए. स्मॉल पॉक्स इज वेरी विशियस, राइट? And then there are 3-4 farmer families, like smallpox, never touch them. Yeah, there is something, right? So he started collecting data, the power of the data. Epidemiology is very important, right? मैंने कहा कि क्या करते हो तुम सारे, हम सोते हैं, हम मिल्क निकालते हैं काउ से, ओ अच्छा फिर काउ का जो टीक्स हैं उनको ऑब्जर्व करते हैं, ओ देयर इज अ पॉक्स देयर, वो कौन सा वायरस है, वो पॉक्स वायरस है. So they inoculated themselves and they were vaccinated. So initial 1796 is generous year when लोगों ने ये वो इकट्ठा करने शुरू कर दिए, वो जो पार्ट्स लोगों को होते थे उससे वो स्क्रैच कर लेते थे स्किन उनकी, और एक लंबे उसमें पाइप में यूं डाल के, तो पेशेंट is standing here and you are standing here and he take it to his nose and you say and the vaccination is done, you know. And there you imagine that at that time the vaccination has कोई डोज वो नहीं है, ज़्यादा भी हो सकती है, कम भी हो सकती है, you know, there is no quantification of that, but people did that. Okay, so 1949 is important. Why? Because cell culture, and that's when first time people said, oh my god, we can actually grow virus and study it. Before that they didn't know what to do with viruses, where to grow it. HIV research is 10 years pushed back. Why? Because HIV is a stubborn virus. It does not grow in the cell culture. सिर्फ जिन लोगों को HIV होता है उनमें होता है, उसको लाइव होस्ट चाहिए. तो अब either you study the patient if they allow you, and it doesn't grow in the cell culture at all. 10 years, we are 10 years behind. Because the virus is so stubborn, it says, no, I'm not going to go in a cell culture. So clever, right? So cell culture is very important. Cell culture in animals, cell culture in a cell line, small animals, large animals, and so forth. So these years are very important. So कितने वैक्सीन होंगे आपका ख्याल में अब तक? 1796 से जब जेनर का वैक्सीन आया स्मॉलपॉक्स के लिए, अब तक कितने वायरसेस हैं? चलो मैं आपको कहती हूँ 2000 से ऊपर वायरसेस और उनके सब स्पीशीज हैं. आपका क्या ख्याल है कि हाउ मेनी वैक्सीनेशंस वी हैव इन द वर्ल्ड? जर्मनी काम कर रहा है, अमेरिका काम कर रहा है, पूरी दुनिया वैक्सीनेशन के पीछे भाग रही है. कितनी वैक्सीनेशंस हैं हमारे पास? 200. किसने कहा था? आपको कहा था, आपने नहीं बोला. 30. That's it. सिर्फ 30 वैक्सीनेशन हैं हमारे पास, पूरी दुनिया के पास. तो मैं आपको बता रही हूँ कि वायरस से मुकाबला नहीं है हमारा. We can be friends with them and use them, which we have started in America. We use viruses as a vehicle to take something inside the people as a vector, as a vehicle, right? So vaccines can be in the form of inactivated virus like killed vaccine है, attenuated vaccine है, but the goal is to produce oral vaccines. The goal is to produce oral vaccines because they are easiest to administer and actually कहने में बुरा लगता है, you can administer them without telling them. चावल की झील में डाल दी, you know, खाने में डाल दी, you know, people get vaccinated. People are afraid of syringes. People are afraid of like going to hospital. People have so many stigmas, right? लेकिन सबसे ज़्यादा vaccinations कौन सी हैं? ये वाली. सबसे ज़्यादा कौन सी चाहिए? ये वाली. Oral चाहिए, and goal is to make oral, but we can't. It's like too cumbersome. It's like too difficult. Too much money involved, right? So that's the dilemma. That's a difficulty in the world of vaccination. Okay, and then antibiotics like penicillin, they are going to go away too because MRSA has come. More and more bacteria is not responding to antibiotics because people all the everywhere I go they say, oh, you biotechnologists, you make this like chimera DNA. Oh, I said, you shouldn't be afraid of chimera DNA. You shouldn't be afraid of GMO. GMO has given us tomatoes since 70s and carrots, which do not go bad, and they have vitamin E and lycopenes and things like that, which give us vitamin A without us knowing. What you should be afraid of, all the antibiotics that the farmer is giving to the cow, and the farmer is giving to all these buffaloes that we are going to consume on this Eid, and all those antibiotics are going in you and me when we consume those things. And therefore, all the bacteria inside us, 800 type of bacteria live in your gut. 400 different types of bacteria is living in your and my mouths. It keeps us alive. But if that bacteria and this bacteria goes berserk, we get UTI, right? We get many kinds of diseases. And if our bacteria become MRSA, like become antibiotic resistance, we now thinking in Western world about vaccinations against bacterial diseases, which is a new challenge, new heightened challenge. Okay, and so here I'm telling you that what inactivated virus particles are. They are live viruses which are grown in culture, polio, flu. These are the examples for this. Inactivated virus particles are given, right? And attenuated viruses, good examples are for TB, oral polio, smallpox. These are attenuated vaccines which are given. And virus like particles, VLPs, they are getting more and more famous because here you take a virus, you change it a little bit so that it cannot cause disease in you, but at the same time not give you side effects, but at the same time can help you become vaccinated for life. So, but they are very expensive to make.
It's very difficult.
They're very difficult too.
To cut
Very,
a virulent side.
yes. So subunit vaccines, they are for things like tetanus and diphtheria, and genetic or protein vaccines like viral vectors. They are also a subcategory of vaccines now. And then there are edible vaccines, which is the goal, right? And the things you should think as virologists and biotechnologists, you should think that what I have written here, look, bananas, potatoes, tobacco, is almost common in every culture. Bananas are eaten worldwide, geographically. Potatoes, worldwide. They are palatable. ये palatable food कहते हैं इसको. दुनिया में almost बहुत कम लोग होंगे जो कहेंगे मुझे बनाना पसंद नहीं, या बहुत कम बच्चे होंगे जो आलू को रिफ्यूज करेंगे. तो ये palatable foods हैं, और staple foods है, तो उसमें हम वैक्सीन डालने की कोशिश करेंगे. Okay, so this is the same in the form of a table. Okay, then I want to tell you the story of Lady Montagu. I don't know how many of you know about Lady Montagu, but Lady Montagu was she was married to a man who became the ambassador of Turkey at that time, and smallpox was killing her. So she was in Turkey, and in Turkey, people were already doing violation against smallpox. In Turkey, people would collect these pox things, and they were doing the nostril take, and they were also doing a very crude technique where they don't even sterilize chaku, and they would make a cut, and they actually take a spoonful of that powder and put it in and push it in. It sounds horrible. I know.
It's a sort of vaccine, hard vaccine.
Yes. So that was a vaccine, and she saw it in Turkey, and when she came back to Europe, she had little kids. This is Edward, her son, and she was such an adamant mom. Remember, revolutions come by women in a country. If women want something, they'll get it done.
Yes.
Right? So she said, no, I am going to do this party. They used to be called vaccination parties. Everybody come to the party to get it cut, drug parties these days. So this was like a vaccination party. So she did a vaccination party, and she put her son, her 11 years old or 8 years old Edward, that okay, my son will get it. She get it done. And then all the other nobles, in that party, get it done too. Because if a child is doing, you are very ashamed that you are afraid of it, right? That's one thing. The other thing that I want you to know is that the history of vaccination and history of epidemics is dark. So there was slavery in America, and they would take these slaves or black people that if they have, and we have done a lot of bad things to other people too. Like minorities are sometimes treated very poorly in every country, Pakistan also. So this was a minority, blacks were minority. And what they would do is that they would like catch these people like stealing silk. Oh my God, it's silk for God's sake, put him in jail. No, they were going to be hanged to death. So then they go to these people who were going to be dead because they steal silk, big deal. And they say, hey, if you take the violation, if you die, you are going to die anyway. Because we are going to hang you. But if you live, we let you go. देखो कितना bad choices हैं, bad choice and a bad choice. That was the choice given. So many black prisoners, they took the choice. They said, "Lagao." So they vaccinate them, and when the black people survive, they were freed and they go, and then all the nobles come and they say, "Lagao." You see that? Rich people always are ahead in every culture, every part of the history. और जब अगर वो मर गया तो जैसे नहीं ये ठीक नहीं आप दूसरा ब्लैक देखा so they would like do the dose correction on them like quantitation नहीं हो सकती ना quantitation तो नहीं सिर्फ ज़्यादा कर लिया फिर थोड़ा कर लिया फिर थोड़ा कर लिया like that so it was all like by estimation guesstimation. So this is she has a huge role. Montague has a huge role in bringing vaccination into Europe. After that it becomes spread like a her party main vaccination program. Like that. So this is the influenza virus which comes every year, and you are very young, but many of the faculty here, right, my age, they should take a flu vaccination every year. After 40s, you should take a flu like your parents, if they are in their 40s or more, or your grandparents, definitely, they should take a flu vaccination because flu is one of those diseases that nobody should die with flu, but people still die. In the whole world, in America, people die with flu, in Europe, people die with flu, and all they have to take is like take one injection every November, right? So why we want to take flu injection? Because the flu virus, it has these two proteins, right? We know them as H1N1. You might have heard that, H2N2, like that, right? Those names you have heard? Yes, no? Yeah? So those are two proteins. One is known as hemagglutinin antigen, and another one is known as neuraminidase antigen. This is called H, this is called N, right? And there are many of them, but in you and me, there are 16 HAs, hemagglutinin, and there are 9 neuraminidases. But in you and me, the flu is caused only by H1, H2, H3, and N1 and N2. तो ज़्यादा combinations नहीं है. You see, H1N1, H1N2, H2N1, H2N2, and H3N1 or H3N2. बस. Does it make sense, right? So we do an educated guess every year. We know that where the virus has been, कौन से farm के जानवरों को हुआ है, hens को हुआ है, robins को हुआ है, horses को हुआ है, flu किसको हुआ है, कहाँ से वो DNA उठा रहे हैं, right? So we figure out कि इस साल H1N1 आएगा या H2N2 आएगा, like that. And इसीलिए जब वैक्सीन होती है तो वो सिर्फ 80% होता है, 20% फिर भी चांस है कि हमको फ्लू हो जाएगा, जो कि हम हाथ धोने से और ये करने से और एहतियात से बच सकते हैं फ्लू से. Yes.
मोस्टली वैक्सीन सब अपनी लाइफ में एक टाइम में बनाते और उसके बाद हमारे एडमिशन में होगी। बट इन्फ्लुएंजा वायरस के लिए सबको बोला कि हर टाइम में इस वायरस की वैक्सीन में भी
Okay, Vidya, this is a great question. So I'm going to stop here and answer your question first. जिस दिन हमको फ्लू की वैक्सीनेशन फॉर लाइफ मिल जाएगी ना, उस दिन हमारे इतने प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाएंगे, हमको उस दिन HIV की भी मिल जाएगी। ठीक है, जो ये RNA वायरस है एंड इट लाइक पीक्स इन विंटर टाइम। ठीक है, इसके बाहर एक लेयर है जो विंटर टाइम में ये बहुत जल्दी उतार लेता है जब हमारे अंदर जाता है। लेकिन अब ये जो स्लाइड है ये आपके क्वेश्चन का आंसर करने लगी है। ठीक है, तो मैं सब्जेक्ट ए हूँ, आप सब्जेक्ट बी हो। ठीक है, और हमारी चेयर जो है वो सब्जेक्ट 3 है। ठीक है, तो मैं यहाँ हूँ, मुझको फ्लू हो गया, फ्लू वायरस ने जंप किया मेरे अंदर से। जब वो निकला तो वो बडिंग करके निकलता है। बडिंग का मतलब है कि हर सेल में से धक्का लगा के ना, तो सेल को तोड़ता नहीं है, बस सेल को धक्का लगा के, जैसे अगर एक बैलून है और उसमें आप उंगली डाल के उसको फैला करते जाएं। जब बैलून फटेगा तो उसका एक छोटा सा हिस्सा आपकी उंगली पे चिपक जाएगा, वो रह जाएगा आपके साथ। तो वो जब जाता है तो वो थोड़ा सा मेरा DNA ले गया साथ, फिर वहाँ से आपको आ गया सब्जेक्ट 2। ठीक है, अब ये वो वायरस नहीं है जिसने मुझे फ्लू किया था, अब ये वो वायरस है जिसने मुझे फ्लू किया था और अब इसके पास मेरा DNA है। ठीक है, और वहाँ से हमारी चेयर हो गया। अब वो वायरस नहीं है जिसने मुझे किया और वो वायरस नहीं है जिसने आपको किया, ये फिर बदल गया। यू सी हाउ क्विकली इट इज़ चेंजिंग। HIV इज इवन दैट। HIV इतना खौफनाक वायरस है कि जब उन्होंने लोगों को स्टडी किया, एक बंदा है उसको HIV है, हर 3 महीने के बाद वो उसका ब्लड लेते हैं और देखते हैं, उसको सीक्वेंस करते हैं। तो समझ लो कि उसका जो HIV का सीक्वेंस है वो A है। तो उन्होंने देखा कि 3 महीने के बाद ना सिर्फ ये कि उसमें और पेशेंट A है और पेशेंट B है, इसका सीक्वेंस करते हैं, इसका सीक्वेंस करते हैं, राइट। तो उन्होंने देखा कि 3 महीने के बाद पेशेंट A का पेशेंट B से मुख्तलिफ है, लेकिन पेशेंट A का अपना 3 महीने पहले से भी मुख्तलिफ है। अब उसके अंदर 2 वायरसेस हैं, सो इट इवॉल्व्स सो क्विकली, राइट। तो इफ यू सी हियर, सो कीप योर आइज हियर, राइट। ये यहाँ है, राइट हियर, और ये क्या है, ये आपका H एंटीजन है। दिस H एंटीजन इज पिंक हियर। By the time it jumps, it is now a line on it. That means a mutation has happened. It's not the same virus anymore. And by the time it jumps to the subject 3, it has a yellow and green line in it. So it's not the same. So not only my flu is different from yours and yours is different from Dr. Iqtidar, the severity of flu in me, you and her might be very different because she is coming third into it. And now virus is getting stronger and stronger, taking my DNA and yours. तो मुझे शायद ऐसा हुआ हो कि एक दिन मैंने छुट्टी कर ली, अगले दिन मैं ठीक हो गई, and you were like 3 days in bed, and Dr. Iqtidar will be like 2 weeks in bed, जो कि फ्लू का सीजन में, अगर आपको फ्लू सीजन होता है तो you mostly are 2 weeks in bed, right? So it's very virulent, and it evolves very fast. Plus it knows how to take our pieces and make it its own and change its disguise. It changes disguise, and when it goes to every person, हमारे सेल कहते हैं, I know you, come on in please, because it knows our receptors, and our receptors say, oh yeah, this is a friend, let it come in. So we evolve slow and they evolve very fast, right? So they're much clever. Yeah, just 1 second, अभी आपका क्वेश्चन लेते हैं। Here you see the same thing. Now it is not the same species. There's a human. Here I want you to see that it is in a duck. Farms पे ये होता है आमतौर पे। वो फार्म से उठा या डक से निकला, पिग में चला गया या हॉर्स में चला गया या डंकी में चला गया, और वहाँ से जब वो उठा तो ह्यूमंस में चला गया, राइट। सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एंटीजेनिक ड्रिफ्ट, ये सीजनल फ्लू है। ये थोड़ा 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 करके होता है। मुझे थोड़ा सा हुआ, 1 वीक का हुआ, 2 वीक का हुआ, चला गया। ये पेंडेमिक है, ये एंटीजेनिक शिफ्ट है। यू नो, पिग इज वेरी डिफरेंट, डक इज वेरी डिफरेंट, हॉर्स इज वेरी डिफरेंट। वो जब वहां से उठ के आएगा कोई दवाई असर नहीं करेगी, वो यूं फैलेगा जैसे आग की तरह, जैसे कोविड-19। ये ज़ूनोटिक है ना, कोविड-19 तो भी ज़ूनोटिक है, राइट? सो difference between antigenic drift and antigenic shift is this, that this we control by seasonal vaccinations. This we can control by our attitude. जब लोग कहते हो जी एक दफा थोड़ी देर के लिए बाजार गए थे, कोई बात नहीं, you know, but virus doesn't say थोड़ी देर, you know, and then people say नहीं थोड़ी सी शॉपिंग करके आते थे। नहीं, वो थोड़ी सी शॉपिंग में भी वायरस ने पकड़ लिया आपको, you know, so viruses are there all the time, right? Okay, your question.
We always talk about that there is a conserved region. So in viruses also there is a conserved region that doesn't change whether it's multiplied 1,000 times.
क्या नाम है आपका?
Naila.
So Miss Naila का सवाल is very very good and it is very very true. हर वायरस में एक कंजर्व्ड एरिया है, आपकी और मेरी तरह। आमतौर पे वो एनव एरिया है, ENV उसको कहते हैं, क्योंकि वायरस के लिए एनवेलप बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। जो प्रोटीन कोड है ना उसका, उसके ऊपर एनवेलप वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट। तो एन जीन जो है वो ऑलमोस्ट ऑल वायरसेस में कंजर्व रहती है, और ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन्स की जीन्स कंजर्व रहती हैं। सो जो HIV की वैक्सीनेशन पे सारा काम हो रहा है उसमें हम यही कर रहे हैं कि या उसके पॉलीमरेज की जीन, everybody knows what polymerase is, right? So पोल एन कहते हैं, या एनवेलप की जीन, या ऐसी जीन्स को हम चाहते हैं अगर कितना चेंज करें कि वायरस आ भी जाए तो वो लोगों को मार ना सके। तो अब 30 इयर्स गुजर गए हैं HIV को, तो अब जिन लोगों को HIV होता है वो बहुत साल जिंदा रह सकते हैं और उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ बहुत हाई है। जब 30 साल पहले HIV आया था तो जब लोगों को HIV होता था तो वो 15 गोलियां लेते थे हर 2 घंटे, कॉकटेल उसको कहते थे, और उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ इतनी लो थी, हर वक्त उल्टियाँ कर रहे हैं, वजन चला गया, हर जगह वो आ रही हैं पैचेस एंड ऑल दैट। अब दवाइयाँ इतनी एडवांस हो गई हैं कि उनको आप अलाइव भी रख सकते हैं, उनकी क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ भी बहुत हाई है और उनको एड्स भी नहीं होगा क्योंकि आप टाइटर जो है वायरस का लो रख सकते हैं। और ये जो है एक टोटली एक डिफरेंट डिस्कशन है क्योंकि पूरी दुनिया में फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनियां जो हैं वो वैक्सीन बनाने में इंटरेस्टेड नहीं हैं। They are more interested to buy their pharmaceuticals so that they can make money, and if they do vaccination, they lose that. So it's a great question. Yes, there are conserved regions in all viruses, and now we have learned how to use them towards our advantage. Okay. Then I want to tell you about viroids and prions. ये 2 चीजें हैं जो कई दफा स्टूडेंट्स को नहीं पता। तो हमने ये सोच लिया कि हर चीज़ का ब्लूप्रिंट है, हम या DNA पिंक हैं या RNA पिंक हैं, तो हमने कई साल इस चीज़ को बिल्कुल इग्नोर कर दिया क्योंकि हम ह्यूमन बीइंग्स जो है ना वो बड़े वी लाइक अवर सेल्व्स, यू नो, वी आर वेरी व्हाट यू कॉल नार्सिसिस्ट, यू नो, वी लव अवर सेल्फ, वी आर लाइक जो मुझे पता है किसी को पता नहीं, यू नो। फिर हम ऐसा सोचते हैं कि हम तो यहाँ जिंदा नहीं रह सकते, वायरस कैसे रह सकता है, तो हमें कई वायरसों का पता ही नहीं चला। अब बाद में पता चला कि वायरस तो आग में भी रहते हैं, रेडियो एक्टिव मटीरियल में भी रहते हैं, हार्ट स्प्रिंग में भी रहते हैं, बॉइलिंग वाटर में भी रहते हैं, क्योंकि हमने सोचा हम तो नहीं रह सकते तो कोई भी नहीं रह सकता और बैक्टीरिया भी नहीं रह सकता। और फिर बहुत देर लग गई हमको कई बैक्टीरिया ढूंढते हुए और कई वायरस, और यही हमने यहाँ किया। हमने एक दफ़ा एक डेफिनेशन बना ली कि वायरस जो है वो या DNA वाला होता है या RNA वाला होता है, और हमने तवज्जो ही नहीं दी कि कुछ और भी हो सकता है। तो ये बहुत लेटेस्ट है कि हमको पता चला कि देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड विरोइड्स, और विरोइड जो हैं ये सिर्फ सिंगल स्ट्रैंड RNA है, सिंगल स्ट्रैंड RNA, कुछ और नहीं है इसमें, DNA भी नहीं है, प्रोटीन्स भी नहीं है, कुछ हमें पता नहीं है कि ये कैसे हमको इन्फेक्ट करता है, और कोई हमें पता नहीं है कि इससे लड़ना कैसे है। ठीक है? यस।
I just one thing asked it through the state military genetics department in France. The TSTVD was my subject to the research. I did my this cytogenetic mutagenesis and reverse transcription.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So they are the wonderful species, and they just are much more faster in
Yes.
showing mutation as compared to the viruses.
Yes.
And it's easier to work with them, but it's not easy to handle them
Yes.
because they just change within 1-2 hours.
Yes. So single-strand RNAs, like your teacher said, they're about 1/10 the size of the smallest infectious viral RNA genome. बहुत छोटे हैं और ये बहुत बहुत तेजी से change होते हैं, very very fast. So we have no control over it. We have no idea how do they replicate, how do they cause disease, how did they originate, or do they have counterparts in animals or not. So basically we know nothing about them.
Generally, according to my research at that time, they generally don't have counterparts in animals. I don't know
No,
what
no,
happens
we are,
with
no,
them.
you're right. We don't know.
Yes.
So I never say no because we don't know in 10
Yes,
years
we don't.
what will happen. And the other thing that I want to show you is prions. And prions, basically, as the name says, they are the proteins, and they are nothing but the proteins. अब हमने तो ये सोचा था कि डीएनए से आरएनए बनता है, आरएनए से फिर प्रोटीन बनती है, या सोचा था कि आरएनए वाले पहले डीएनए बनाते हैं, फिर दोबारा आरएनए बनाते हैं, फिर प्रोटीन बनाते हैं. This is a protein by itself, and it is such a clever protein. It's a small protein, and it is such a clever protein that it basically, जैसे पानी में 2 ब्लॉक्स डाल के तो वो हिलते हैं, राइट, और किसी पर वो यूं टच करते हैं, राइट. तो जो प्रियॉन है, समझ लो कि ये प्रियॉन है और ये मेरी अच्छी प्रोटीन है, ये प्रोटीन मेरे लिए काम कर रहा है, ये प्रियॉन आ गया, इसने इसको टच करना है, हमें कोई पता नहीं है कि उसका मोलेकुलर रीजन क्या है, ये टच करता है यूं, and this becomes like this. Then this goes and touch another one, और फिर it goes like this, and that happens unfortunately in people for years without any symptoms.
Excuse me, what is
Yeah.
the source of replication, or what is the mode of replication?
There isn't. So they are.
How
It
do
seems
they
like
grow?
that they are budding. Like a bacteria, like one becomes 2, but we do not know where they come from. And now there are like several. There are 3 different theories how they are like sporadic or familial and things like that. But all of the spongiform diseases, like mad cow disease, का आपको पता होगा? I mean, if you know mad cow disease, the cows are not mad in that. You know that, right? Okay, good. And then वो है deer wasting disease. That is also like that, and now it is in humans. And there are no symptoms whatsoever. And then suddenly people lose their mind. And by the time the symptoms show, when you look in their brain, you see these white patches here. Their cells are being almost like eaten. There are no cells left, and there is no way of regenerating your brain cells, right? And these are the what you call challenges of the new world. They are challenges of the advanced world, right, in which we live, right? So nature has a great way of throwing every 30 years a virus at us and then saying, hey, deal with it. And we are so busy fighting with each other. We should be fighting. We have a fight right in front of us, right? God has made all these creatures. They are beautiful. But our job is to explore them, right? And see how they can be on our side. Instead, we are fighting with each other. There are countries in the world, जब उनकी गंदम ज़्यादा होती है ना, they go and throw it in the ocean.
Yes.
They will not give it to a country which needs it
Yes,
because
yes.
politically it is not feasible. And this is how humans are. So that's why I said we are on the top of the food chain just by chance. It's just by chance. Okay. So prion they cause many diseases. Scrapies in sheep, mad cow disease in cows, chronic wasting disease in deer, and so forth. All kuro is very common in Africa now. So all these diseases come from them, and we are they grow asymptomatically. That is the most dangerous thing about them. We don't even know. It is still rare, but it is there. Right? So this is about vaccination. So Vaccination is only divided into upstate processing and downstream processing. Upstream processing and downstream processing. And these things are not difficult. They're not difficult at all. Cell culture, inoculation, harvest the cell, make them grow in conical flasks, right? Purify it, bulk agent stabilizes, add करें और fill करें. So you should ask yourself, why the heck they take 15 years to bring a vaccine out? My husband asked me that question because he's a physicist. So he always asks it, why don't you guys? He says, why don't you guys bring the vaccine faster? You know? Because every time when you run a batch of vaccination, 3 times, it has to come the same. Anything changes, you start over. But when COVID-19 came, didn't they bring the vaccine in 10 months? They did. Right? So that means it's doable. Right? And what worries me is that in Pakistan there are such bright students like you and such bright minds like faculty is sitting here. Why don't we give a shot to make a vaccination? I don't understand that. So that is a question for you, for audience, you know, that because when we live away from Pakistan, we don't have sight to many things. I don't know how the labs work. I don't know how the research happens here. I don't know how the industry works. But why are we not making vaccination? India is. China is. No matter how crude it is, they have made their own vaccination. Right? So we should try and you should think about it. Because my purpose of showing you this is that vaccination, making a vaccination is not any harder than doing other biotechnology stuff. The steps are simple, but the biosafety level is very high. Biosafety level 3 or 4, you have to make it at that, right? Okay. And one of the few things that I want to discuss with you, this is your vaccination. This is your inoculation. The syringe comes in, right? This is your vaccine injection. Once the antigen comes in, basically your macrophages, जो आपके defenders हैं, you know, they are patrolling there. So they engulf it, right? They present it to the B cells. B cells memory cells बनाते हैं. B cells like take it into the lymph nodes, right? Lymph nodes. And the lymph nodes basically present it again like as T cell. And as a result, there is a clonal expansion and immunological memory develops, right? So we know that. So basically these clonal cells are always there. They are like just patrolling around slowly, lazily, that everything is okay, right? But as soon as the injection goes in, they say, oh, we have to make so many, something is wrong, right? So as a result, when that virus comes in, your T cell says, hey, I have seen you, you are not a good guy, I'm going to kill you, right? So that's how it works. Okay, and then one of the social thing that I want to teach you. During all the epidemics in the world, especially when vaccination was not there, places in the world were divided into estates. And so the top of the estate were the people of the religion, clergy. Then was nobility, rich people. And then was the peasantry, farmers, cobblers, tailors, service people. And there was this stupid thing that ruled over the world for so many years. कि ओ जी कॉबलर का बेटा कॉबलर बनेगा, मोची का वो दर्जी का बेटा डॉक्टर कैसे हो सकता है? Because they didn't let him go to the medical college. He can be, right? So these people ruled the world during these epidemics. And because I'm standing in LCWU and majority of women are sitting in front of me, I want to show you that what was the categories for you and me at that time. So women were only categorized during these epidemics either as virgins, wives, or widows. Imagine, our identity is only by what we are doing with men. Go figure. Isn't that strange for you?
No,
And then
It still happens.
not to this extent, I hope.
Not to
Yeah.
that extent.
Most of the world is only putting MS with their name. Because he's a Mr. before marriage and he's a Mr. after marriage. And why I am a MRS after the marriage? What did I do? Right? So I am a Miss before marriage and I am a Miss MS after marriage. And more girls are not changing their names in the world. Why?
Yes.
I have done publications. I have brought grants. Look, there is like stars sitting here, brought like grants like in this department. Grants brought. Why should I like change my name and go back and tell all the papers that my name has changed? You know? So you should so you should understand that world for women has changed drastically. And science has a role in it, right? So this was our, like, we were either virgins, wives, or widows, and doctors were only men. And they were not allowed to marry also at that time. And there were no gloves, by the way. That just boggles my mind. That how can they not wash their hands and not have gloves? So, but first medical college was made in Italy, right? Women came into the field much later. And what I want to show you is also that when this whole thing happened, this is an epidemic of 1340 to 1400, late ages outbreak of bubonic plague, Black Death. उसके 3 different ways में Black Death आई थी, one was bubonic. So what I want you to see is that Christians accuse Jews. It happens all the time now also. You know, I have heard so many things. Oh, COVID-19 है ना, वो उन्होंने हमारे ऊपर डाल दिया. You are educated people, right? This has been happening since 1300s. Christians said to Jews कि तुमने पानी में भोजन डाल दिया. You know, इसलिए you are not getting sick, but we are getting sick. You know why Jews were not getting sick? Because they have very similar thing to evolution. And they were washing their hands a lot and they were cleaning themselves. So they were not having much less disease, and Christians were not doing that at that time. Jews didn't put anything in the water. And then people say, oh, मक्का जैसी जगह में पहली दफा बंद हो गई, ये क्रिश्चियंस ने हमारे साथ कर दिया. Makkah was infected in 1349. In 1349, Makkah has infection, plague, and it closed it. So I want you to always keep an open mind. When people say these things, don't believe them. Read. You are smart women. And when somebody tries to say it, say, that's not true. Let me tell you what happened. You know, that's not true that Makkah has been closed first time. Makkah was closed in 1300. Because plague was very common. Like, infections were very common. You know, and viruses have done that. Nobody has done that. Right? It's us. Like what we eat and things like that. And also, just like leprosy, ईसा के टाइम में, Christianity के टाइम में, जब lepers को लोग कहते थे कि इन पर अल्लाह ने वो भेजा है. Leprosy is because of a bacteria. You know that. And it is curable. And TB was a death sentence. Right? Now TB is like 1 month antibiotic. And we are going towards a time when cancer is going to be, मेरा जो biomolecular engineering department है, we work to make cancer as a condition, like blood pressure. Like you take a pill and you can, without crying, talk, मुझे ये वाला कैंसर हुआ था and I'm fine और मैं वो वाली दवाई ले रही हूँ. You know, we want to bring cancer to a point where it is a condition, not a death threat. Because TB was a death threat, right? And so was many other diseases, which is not anymore. Leprosy is not a curse from God. God is very gentle. God is kind. And God is kind to everybody. Right? All right.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What about biowar? क्या वायरस से यूज करते हैं biowar के लिए?
Very good question. So, okay. So I just want to tell you on this slide that later people started saying that seeing the hands of people and seeing the stars, that how when Jupiter is with Mars in line, and that's when the epidemic comes. So that whole thing has happened too, and people still do it, right? So these things have happened over the years. So and many of these things we use still. We say वो दीवाना है, genetic, right? ये moon से आता है, कि जब चांद पूरा होता है तो वो दीवाना है. So these things are like remnants of those times when this was like Black Death, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn passing through the deadly constellation Aquarius. And all the people who were Aquarius, they said, "Oh, don't eat with them, don't sit with them." I mean, this discrimination is going on right now. People say, "Oh, oh my God, Chinese, I better like go this way." I mean, that Chinese has equal chance of giving you a virus as a Pakistan, right? So Madam Iqdar ने एक बहुत खूबसूरत and this is the uniform of a doctor. So this is a doctor, right? And this is a black robe, like death's का, और ये जो beak है, at the end of the beak there was thought to be, so that they can like smell nice things, because they thought that all the black bubonic plague because of the poor people who smell and they don't like take a bath. This is what nobility was doing at that time, and that kind of ignorance still exists. There are people who are PhD, there are people who are masters, and I have seen them saying things like, "Oh yeah, ये गरीबों को ज़्यादा होता है, वो नहाते नहीं हैं." I'm like, "Oh come on," So you also have to rise above that, because you are educated people and you are going to bring those changes in this country. So and this stick. Why do you think this stick they have in their hand? आपका क्या ख्याल है इस stick का distance कितना होगा? किसने कहा 6 feet? 2 meters, right? तो वो जब कोई पास आने लगता था तो वो they put the stick दूर रहो, So these things, and quarantine, वो quarantine होता था पहले, 40 days होता था, फिर 30 days हो गया, because वो ships में जो लोग बीमार थे, they wouldn't let them come into the city, and so all these things are the remnants of the past. And then this is my last slide. So I want you to see endemic malaria in South America, Africa, and South Asia. The transmission occurs, but the number of cases remain constant, and it comes and goes, and it's not life-threatening, no big deal. Epidemic is the number of cases increase. So Ebola, SARS, MERS are good examples of that. And when epidemic occurs at several continents at the same time, like Spanish flu or COVID-19 or HIV, that becomes pandemic because it has now traveled in the world. Its incubation period is long and it does not kill easily, right? So people are carrying it with them. Thank you for your attention and questions, but I am going to address a very important question that Dr. Iqbal brought up. She said, and that's altogether a different lecture, but she said, do you think that there is a threat for a bio war? And the answer to that is simple. I don't want to make you afraid, but the simple answer to that is yes. Okay? But that simple answer you have to take with a grain of salt. Right? So for example, अब लोग कह रहे हैं कि if you go in my generation, right, let's say कि मेरी परदादी जो थी उनको breast cancer था, मेरी जो दादी थी let's say उनको breast cancer gene लिखा हुआ, let's say my mom has it later, the chances that I will have it is very high because the genomics is showing it, right? So that's why people start getting very afraid. But now I teach people that your genomics basically is a loaded gun, but your habits pull the trigger. Epigenetics is everything. Genomics is genomics. Whatever happened in my generation of women happened, But then, if my habits are horrible, if I smoke, if I drink, if I have a bad lifestyle, if I am working in a nail polish remover factory and I'm like smelling that every day, of course chances of like that getting will be higher because it's in my family. But chances of getting that is much higher even if it is not in my family if I have bad habits. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there are people in the world who are making these viruses. These viruses can be used. So there are two vials. Everybody understand? You are biotechnology people. There are two live vials of smallpox in the world. They're still there. You know where they are? One is with America, in Bethesda, Washington DC, and one is with Russia. Go figure, right? And they are sitting there, but when you tell them to throw them away, they always say, "Oh, research purposes." So they are doing research on it, no doubt about it. But there's always a thought that people can use anything for a biotech. But then there are people who have made these recombinant viruses now, the heroes and the villains. It's the same story. We have made those recombinant viruses, which you inject like a nano material. They go find where the cancer is, destroy the cancer, and then self-destruct. This is a Star Trek stuff.
Nanorobots.
Huh?
They are named as nanorobots.
We have nanorobots, we have nanomotors, we have nanowires, right? So we have nanotubules. We have made so many good things with viruses. And so we have find out that इनसे लड़ नहीं सकते, तो ये हमारे friend बनते हैं. And जो एक अच्छी चीज़ है, so there is no chalkboard here. So let's say this is my virus DNA. ये मेरा पूरा वायरस DNA है. तो किसी ने बहुत अच्छा सवाल पूछा था कि मैडम उसमें जो कंजर्व्ड रीजन्स हैं, तो ये कंजर्व्ड रीजन है, इसको तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि ये निकाल देंगे तो वायरस मर जाए. तो अब हमने देखना शुरू किया कि ओ इतना बड़ा वायरस है, स्मॉल पॉक्स इज वेरी बिग. तो देखा इससे क्या करते हैं, इससे क्या करते हैं, इससे क्या करते हैं. तो हमको पता चला कि उसमें बहुत सारे उसके ऐसे हिस्से हैं जो नॉन एसेंशियल है वायरस के, यूं ही मतलब लेके फिर रहे हैं. तो ये हिस्सा निकाल दिया और यहाँ कैसे डाल दिया अपने जो जीन ऑफ इंटरेस्ट का, एंड देन वी push it in, right? So we are doing recombinant viruses a lot, right? And they are helping us with the gene therapy, especially with the diseases जिनका कोई इलाज नहीं है. जैसे कोई घोड़े से गिर गया और रीढ़ की हड्डी तोड़ दी, तो उसको हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते. Regeneration जो है, regeneration viruses will give us because they are amazingly, clever, and they can work with us as vehicles, right? And the other thing is that viruses have given us a lot of vaccinations. So that is the hero part, and then there is like the bad part also. But yes, that bio threat remains there, and they say that the next wars, the coming year wars, they will not come from bombs and bullets. They will either come through the bio war or they will come through your computer.
मैडम इससे रिलेटेड ये चीज़ है कि जैसे WHO ने दोबारा चाइना को कहा है कि बताएं कि ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन करें, क्योंकि यही कहा जा रहा है कि चाइना ने यही किया है इसको, कोरोना वायरस को, कि लैब से रिकॉम्बिनेंट की है और इसका मकसद ही ये था बायो वार या इससे रिलेटेड. अब WHO ने दोबारा रिक्वेस्ट की है चाइना को कि वो हमारी हेल्प करे इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन में. तो क्या चाइना बता देगा ये, या उसी तरह छुप जाएगी बात ऐसे?
So
छुपी हुई है जैसे.
So it depends. देखिए, you
क्या अमेरिका इस चीज़ के पीछे पड़ा हुआ है,
right, but you,
ठीक है, और वो चाइना को कन्फेस कराना चाहता है कि वो ये कहे कि ये हमने किया, ये लीक हुआ है या हमने खुद स्प्रेड किया, लेकिन चाइना तो इस चीज़ को नहीं कभी भी नहीं करेगा.
yeah, like उसमें आप ये बात देखिए कि जो you are a biotechnologist, so you understand these things, right? Let's say we all are a team. ये सब लोग जो बैठे हैं हम एक टीम हैं. इस सारी टीम में कितने लोग चाहिए जिसको कोई रिगार्ड ना हो रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस बायोसेफ्टी का, और वो लैक्स पर्सन है और वायरस लैब से निकल जाए? कितने लोग चाहिए? हाँ, जस्ट तो चाइना की जो आबादी है, अगर उसमें 100,000 people are good people, there is one person who is not a bad person but is not skillful and has no respect for rules and regulations. That's all you need. That is true in Pakistan too. That's why hepatitis is everywhere. Because all you have to do is wash your hands, and people are so lazy sometimes. So sometimes people have no respect for these things because they can't see. And I think that China is so far ahead in technology and so far ahead in commerce that they will not want to lose their reputation in the world. They want to make money.
Definitely.
They want to be, the only world power left is America, and China wants to come back to become as well.
Reality
But this is not the way to come back because everybody will hate you.
क्योंकि रियलिटी तो यही कहती है कि ये एक्चुअली जो people वो कहते हैं कि ये एक्चुअली रिकॉम्बिनेंट ही है, क्योंकि रिकॉम्बिनेंट हो के ही इन्होंने लीक किया जिसकी वजह से ये सारा कुछ हुआ, और वो पावर बनना चाहता है चाइना। आर्टिफिशियल वायरस है, नॉट नेचुरल वायरस। नहीं नेचुरल है लेकिन उसको किया गया है।
Yeah, but it is not a recombinant. The virus basically is like this. So this virus, COVID-19, it has been sequenced many places. और ये बात छुपाई नहीं जा सकती because German labs are sequencing it because it was everywhere. So you do not have to I do not have to take a virus from China and then sequence it. I will take a virus from me if I get infected and sequence it in Pakistan, and it is in Germany and everywhere else, right? So when it got sequenced, basically they are finding out that the virus basically is this form. There was a huge antigenic shift, and this virus basically changed few species very, very fast. Do not forget that it was from the Wuhan market, and that Wuhan market is not very different from our Tollington market that used to be in Lahore, where all species of the birds and animals and kacha gosht and no gloves, and people go and buy, and people eat rare meat. In many countries, people eat rare meat, and once you eat rare meat, it's in and then it stops. So I think that no country, commercial dollar money, like everybody's got is green when it comes to that, right? Good money, good reputation, and peace in the world will be brought by artists, businessmen. Businessmen doesn't care what your religion is. They want to sell you their thing. They don't care. Artist doesn't care if you're a Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Christian. They want you to listen to their piano and buy a ticket for a festival or a performance. So the world peace will come through that. So all this, like I know that there are many theories, but the sequence of the virus COVID-19 so far, it tells that there was a huge antigenic shift.
इस तरह तो कोई भी वायरस जो एंटीजेनिक वो शिफ्ट कर सकते हैं, और
It's true.
कुछ भी हो सकता है किसी टाइम।
That's true. It can happen tomorrow or not for 10 years.
या 2 साल बाद हो, 4 साल बाद हो, जब भी एंटीजेनिक शिफ्टिंग होगी।
That's true. And that's why it is very important that you go home and tell your mom and dad and your grandparents that every November they should take a flu injection. That's very important because when you have antibodies in you, you are like a little bit safer, because your body.
There is certain confusion about the vaccination
Yes.
so far taken in Pakistan.
Yes.
Is it true that Sinopharm and Sinovac are not so much good as the other one?
So the question is that, is it true that one kind of vaccination is not as good as the other vaccination? And the answer is yes, unfortunately. Okay. But in there's a lot of human behavior. And what happens in America or Europe, the accountability is very high, right? अगर मैं इंचार्ज हूँ किसी वैक्सीनेशन की, तो मेरा ये काम है कि मैं देखूँ कि वो -4 में पड़ा है या -20 में पड़ा है। जो लैक्स बिहेवियर है ना कि अच्छा जी रूम टेम्परेचर पड़ा, चलो बड़ा है तो ठीक है, सुबह अच्छा नहीं कुछ नहीं हो, चलो दे दो, that behavior is a culprit because the vaccination work, its percentage is different, but if you have let it lapse because of the temperature or the time, or you have not mixed the adjuvant with it properly, बस ऐसे लिया और लगा दिया, आपका स्किल सेट ठीक नहीं है, that will hurt you. And that's where we need to work. In Pakistan, that's where we, not only Pakistan, South Asia, Southeast Asia, that's where we need to.
फेलियर की मेजर रीजन जो है वो यही
Skill sets.
हाँ
Skill sets and training is very important. In America, no matter how PhD and postdoc or what, you get trained about your things, new things in computer, new things in cell culture. Every year, they see how many certifications you have gotten, are you up to date, or am I teaching you like 20 years old yellow notes and coming to the class and telling you, just jaake yaad kar lo, 5 question aayenge. You know, that is like, it's important that you stay on top of this information. We stay on top of this information. Yes.
आपने देखा होगा कि आजकल एक वीडियो जो बहुत शेयर हुई थी कि हमने वैक्सीनेशन करवाई और वहाँ पे जो शॉर्ट ऑफ मैंने हमारे चिप को इंसर्ट कर दिया और यहाँ पे वैक्सीन आई वुड लाइक टू से प्लीज ये भी एक
मैं एड्रेस करूँ उसको?
मेरे पास एक ग्रुप था
हाँ, हाँ।
PhD स्कॉलर थे एंड
हाँ, हाँ।
दे वर सेइंग दैट दिस इज ट्रू सो ये भी एक चीज
हाँ,
उसको
आप क्या नाम है बिटिया आपका? सादिया? सादिया जबी। वेरी वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन। वो मैंने आपको दिखाया वो क्या होता है, पिछली उम्र में वो कहते हैं कि ये क्रिश्चियंस ने किया, ये जूस ने पानी में मिला दिया। सो देखो, थिंक, लेट्स टॉक अबाउट ओनली पाकिस्तान, not any other country, let's say, and then America. And I am a Pakistani, so I love this country, right? But I love this country like an adult. I criticize this country. I will die for this country. But I will also say what is wrong in this country. I don't love this country like a 4-year-old love their mommy. Mommy is always right. You know, I don't do that, right? So let's say Pakistan and let's say Germany or America. Okay? In last 20 years, what has Pakistan made that America wants to steal from us? बता दो.
मैंने भी लिसन किया था फिर आपने जो
और अगर आप उन्होंने इंसर्ट करके आपके अंदर लेना है तो वो सारे पाकिस्तानी जो अमेरिका बैठे हैं वो काफ़ी सैंपल है तो उन्होंने हमारे अंदर तो इंसर्ट कर दिया, अब जो उन्होंने चुराना है वो तो उन्होंने वहीं चुरा लिया, तो वो क्यों भेजेंगे आपको वैक्सीन? यू नो, तो ये बिटिया वैसा ही है जैसे मैंने विमेन एक्शन फोरम के साथ जब मैं यंग थी ना आपकी तरह, तो मैंने बहुत काम किया था यहाँ लाहौर में और इस्लामाबाद में। तो हम विलेजेस में जाते थे तो सिखाने के लिए लोगों को, तो मुझे और अभी चंद साल पहले भी हम विलेजेस में काम कर रहे थे, मेरे हस्बैंड थे, तो हम फील्ड्स में चले जा रहे थे, तो वो खातून जो थी, खातून भी थी और कुछ मर्द भी थे उस टाउन के, तो वो चलती चलती मेरे पास आई, बहुत अच्छी खातून थी, तो वो मेरे कान में कुछ कह रही थी, उनका क्या क्या, तो फिर मुझे समझ आई कि वो कह रही हैं कि हम विलेज की तरफ जा रहे हैं और कैमरा आपके हस्बैंड ने पकड़ा हुआ है। मेरे हस्बैंड जो थे वो भारी था कैमरा, तो मैंने उन्हें कहा कि आप, तो वो कैमरा पकड़ा, वो कहते ऐसे विलेज में एंटर नहीं हो सकते, कैमरा उन्होंने पकड़ा हुआ। तो मैं आपको मेंटालिटी बता रही हूँ, मैंने भाई फोटो तो नहीं खींच रहे, वो तो किसी की फोटो नहीं खींच रहे, कैमरा बहुत भारी है वो, मैंने नहीं उसने कहा आप उठा लें। मेरी कमर रह गई उस विलेज में जाते जाते। सो पीपल आर बाउंड टू व्हाट दे हैव लर्न, वो लर्न बिहेवियर है बिटिया, यू नो। सो लोग ऐसा कह देते हैं, ज़रूरी नहीं है, यू नो। देयर इज, और जब पोलियो का बहुत सारे डॉक्टर्स जब नॉर्थ में लेकर गए पोलियो की वैक्सीनेशन, तो वहाँ ये बात मशहूर हो गई कि ये हमारी मनसूबाबंदी कर रहे हैं, अब किसी को बच्चे नहीं होंगे और आप पोलियो वैक्सीनेशन ना
क्योंकि मैडम वो नॉर्थ वाले करते नहीं ना मनसूबा।
right, but we have nothing against that. They can make all the babies they
इस चीज
want.
को आई डोंट नो क्यों नहीं अंडरस्टैंड
राष्ट्रीय की
जब मैं छोटी थी ना तो रोटी प्लांट आया था, you know what, and that रोटी प्लांट mean कि एक आम औरत की जिंदगी बहुत आसान हो गई कि वो रोटी प्लांट रोटी बनाता था। वो बहुत मतलब जब मैं आपकी जैसी थी तो कॉलेज में थी तो 6 रोटियां वो पैकेट में उन्होंने करनी शुरू कर दी और वो बहुत सस्ती मिलती थी और मेरी अम्मी ने कहा वाह ये तो कितना का, देखो देयर आर फैमिलीज जहाँ 17 लोग हैं, कितनी रोटियां पकाएंगे आप दबे के आगे खड़े होके, आई मीन व्हाट इज दिस, यू नो, दुनिया मार्स पे जा रही है भाई। सो दे सेड ओह ये तो बड़ा काम खराब हो गया, ये तो लड़की की जिंदगी बहुत आसान हो गई। तो उन्होंने कहा हाँ, तो उन्होंने कहा ओह इसमें मनसूबाबंदी का वो है। This the same thing happened and there are people who were not buying that roti, नहीं ये रोटी नहीं आएगी, घर पे रोटी बनेगी, कि तुम्हारी जिंदगी आसान नहीं होने देगी, you know, and now there is a roti maker, वो अब इस वक्त वो $1,000 का है अमेरिका। You don't even do the atta, you only put like 2 cups of atta and water, वो गूंथती भी खुद ही है, पेड़ा भी खुद ही बनाती है, रोटी बाहर आ जाती है। अब उसमें मनसूबाबंदी का क्या होगा? So the thing is technology is beautiful. Technology should come for the ease of humanity. देखो अब जो नई गाड़ियाँ आ रही हैं उसमें नॉर्थ वेस्ट ईस्ट बताता है आप किधर जा रहे हैं, तो नक्शा पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है, अब वो स्किल सेट चला गया। भाई वो भी तो टाइम था जब घर से मर्द सारे जाते थे शिकार करके लाते थे तो कोई खाना खाता था। अब कौन शिकार कर रहे हैं? पिक एंड सेव से गोश्त उठा के लाते हैं, यू नो, पैकेज्ड। सो दैट स्किल हैज गॉन, राइट? सो सर्टेन स्किल्स हैव टू गो एंड सर्टेन माइंडसेट्स हैव टू गो। इट्स अ माइंडसेट, अनफॉर्चुनेटली।
You asked question, last question.
Okay, last one.
When you asked the question that why don't we go for it? Why don't we take the
Haan ji,
vaccine?
haan ji.
And I think you answered it yourself that what matters is mindset. Whether in this setting there will be a lot of students who would be having creative mind and they would be thinking that we should do this, we should do this. But the same thing comes that they don't have the platform, they don't have the liberty from their home to do it, and
and they
there
are
comes
not
the
being
mindset.
encouraged.
Yeah.
Infrastructure
इससे
issue.
ज़्यादा जो
I
encourage
just
नहीं
came
किया
from
Yes.
a hard state and I had a lot of pain in my mind doing the things like that. But I couldn't find the strains of PSTBD in Pakistan, both in Pakistan. And one of my students, she was working and she just isolated herself and we just did blast and we just found. And it took many years to do the same thing, which can be done, which could be done by pulling a rod in the freezer and we can have this.
I
This is the thing.
understand.
5 years she spent in doing that.
Yes.
And I got her re-registered.
So yes, it's like we have to change this, and the Pakistan is in your hands. You are the generation who will take care of us. Right? So when I teach, I say I don't want to make nurses who cannot calculate a dose. I do not want to make an engineer who make the aeroplane in which will come here. I don't want a C or a D student, right? I want my students to excel, right? So the cream of Pakistan, part of the cream of Pakistan is you. You are sitting here. The answer is with you. So I understand that people don't encourage and sometimes you don't have permission from the family, but those are the good fights. You should fight that fight. That's not a bad fight.
I think there are
Yeah.
3 main problems in Pakistan. First is the mindset and lack of the literacy.
Yeah, literacy rate is very low.
Secondly, the feudalism which has been abandoned in
So this
all
was
of the
feudalism.
world,
The
with the
one I
exception of
was showing
Pakistan
you.
and other African country.
Yeah.
And the third is the red tapeism.
I'm sorry.
Red tapeism.
Oh, red tape.
These are the three main things which just keep us away from the progress.
Right, right. But at the same time, you guys can be ministers.
Yes.
You
Okay.
can be the people and make sure that you don't do what has been done to you. Make a difference. Do it different. Right? It is my great pleasure and honor to meet the young minds like you today. Thank you for making the talk so interesting and asking all the wonderful questions. I'm very proud of all of you. And thank you for lending me your ears and listening so carefully.
Thank you. I want to say you thanks. I have listened after so many years of wonderful speech
Thank
about
you.
the vaccination, about the viruses, and the microbiology.
Thank you.
It really, I just made me recall the older times I spent in
Yes.
good labs.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Please have a seat.
I was going to take Oh, somebody has to say
Thank you, ma'am. We feel really honored to have a beautiful and most the session which is full of knowledge. And thank you to all the respected teachers and my colleagues who are coming there on the occasion of this beautiful and full of knowledge session, and who are coming here. Now we are moving toward our certificate distribution session. So I would like to call Ma'am Mehwish Tariq, Dr. Mehwish Iqtidar, please come on the stage and distribute certificates among the faculty members and students too.
Assalamu alaikum. On the behalf of the Department of Biotechnology, okay, now can you hear me? On the behalf of Department of Biotechnology, I would like to thank our speaker, Dr. Gul Sadiq Afshan, for presenting a very enlightening and informative lecture. And it was a very wonderful presentation. You have shown both sides of the virus, the good side and the bad side. How can we use them to benefit ourselves? थोड़ा बहुत खौफनाक भी था वायरस को इतना जान के कि हम किन से हमारी लड़ाई है. So the good but at the end I would like to say that हमें वैक्सीन जो है वो करवानी चाहिए, and जो सेफ्टी मेजर्स हैं उनको ज़रूर जो है फॉलो करना चाहिए टू कीप ourselves safe. And then and the last, I would like to thank our worthy Vice Chancellor for supporting, for her support and cooperation, and because of her, this seminar was. We were able to conduct this seminar, and then I would like to thank all the HODs for coming and for the valuable discussion, and then my very dear friend Dr. Anjum, Director of DFDI, and इनकी support के बगैर जो है seminar बिल्कुल possible नहीं था. इन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की मेरे साथ मिल के, and because of Dr. Anjum जो है इन्होंने actually मुझे मिलवाया Dr. Gul से, and एक बहुत अच्छा हमारा जो है coordination इंशाल्लाह अब भी है, in future भी रहेगा, just for you people. ठीक है, हमारी कोलैबोरेशन हमारे अपने लिए नहीं है, वो हमारी जनरेशन के लिए है कि हम कुछ कर सकें इस मुल्क के लिए. ठीक है, हम ये दावा नहीं करें कि हम बहुत बड़ा कुछ करेंगे, लेकिन हम स्टार्ट तो करें. ठीक है, थैंक यू सो मच. एंड अब सर्टिफिकेट्स के लिए जो है हम डॉक्टर साहब आप आ जाएँ, डॉक्टर गुल एंड डॉक्टर अंजुम आप भी प्लीज स्टेज पे आ जाएँ टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूट द सर्टिफिकेट.
Professor Dr. Zohra, please come on the stage and receive your certificate. Farah Khan.
very nice. Thank you.
Now Dr. Farah Khan, Professor
Uh,
Dr. Farah Khan.
Now please Dr. Professor Dr. Farah Khan, please receive your certificate.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful questions.
Yes,
You
yes.
have an amazing knowledge.
It was an amazing lecture. And I would love to collaborate and tell the public about it over
Oh, you
there.
are?
Yes, and we would love to work with GMP and
Inshallah. We will keep in touch.
एक्सक्यूज मी डॉक्टर फरा एक मिनट पिक्चर आएगी सेंटर में हो गया सारे
जरा आप ही आ जाइए जरा तो बोलिए
डॉक्टर आसफा आप भी आ जाए सब एक साथ आ जाए डॉक्टर
आसफा
आसफा
मैंने देखा ये भी आई
बोलते जाओ
Dr. Rashida.
बुला रहे थे
Thank you for all the wonderful questions.
Dr. Saikal Yas.
डॉक्टर आफशा को बुला रहे थे
Dr. Farheen Aslam. Dr. Faiza Salim.
अंजुम फरहीन डॉक्टर फरहीन को बुलाया
जी मैम वो है डॉक्टर फरहीन भी नहीं है और
माविश आफ्ताब डॉक्टर माविश आफ्ताब भी नहीं है ओके चले
now please come on the stage ma'am Anjum Tahira. Dr. Ruhina Abdullah.
वो नहीं आई
डॉक्टर रीना ऑप्शन है स्टूडेंट्स को बुलाते हैं
Students to first. Now it's student turn. So first I like to call Aisha Ali from MS1. Please receive your certificate.
जल्दी हम वाइंड अप करते हैं
Nayab Gul.
आई थिंक लाइन में लग जाए एंड देन जो है देते जाते बजाय के हम मुझको हाँ
Jumaira Batul.
ताकि काम खत्म हो डॉक्टर अफशान डॉक्टर माविश आफ्ताब
Dr. Mahwish Aftab. Dr. Farheen.
चलो
Sana Ali.
उसी के नाम मत बोलो
इसके आगे भी दो तीन नाम है बेटा आगे दो या तीन नाम बोलते जाए
बता आगे की भी नाम बोलते जाओ
Ujala Iqbal. Maham Zafar.
बेटा टिक भी करते जाए टिक भी करते
जी मैम.
बच्चे ले रहे उनका टिक करते जाए
And I think so I count. It's Iza Asif.
बोलते जाओ
Zainab Tanveer.
And I give you the questions.
अगले भी बोलो
Aisha Asgar. Myra Iftikhar. अफीफ़ा कैसर, आयशा शफीक, अस्का अरशद,
बेटा सबकी ग्रुप फोटो होनी है
आप लोग जाइएगा नहीं सारे अपने सर्टिफिकेट्स के साथ एक ग्रुप फोटो
एंड टीवी
सानिया यूनस,
आयशा
also see this nice way. Delivering was so nice. Well, loving.
सिर्फ मेरा रवि तुमने ले लिया ना, तुमने ले लिया नोट्स तुम्हारे पास है? कौन से नोट्स? कौन से कार्ड? कोई नहीं है मेरे साथ सबमिट के लिए तुमने नोट्स मेरे को
आठवीं क्लास में
सर्टिफिकेट का मकसद ये है कि आप लोगों ने जो सीखा है वो आगे कन्वे करना है। आप में से एक बच्चा अगर एक का भी माइंडसेट चेंज करेगा तो इट मींस कि अगले कुछ सालों में 48 माइंड चेंज हो जाएंगे पॉजिटिव साइड।
करना है 7 years
आपके सर्टिफिकेट्स के बाद से मिलना है।
उसके बाद फिर अपनी सबमिट करेंगे।
सब टीचर्स आ जाए ताकि इनका लेक्चर भी हो जाए। आपको मिल गया?
फोटो हो जाएगी उसके बाद सबमिट करेंगे। ठीक है।
आप लोग को लेंगे? आप लोग को लेंगे? मैंने आपको कहा था हम